As Morphegenix Podcast, I really love to interview people doing interesting things in the agriculture, agribusiness, as well as food industries. So it's really great to have you here. As a brief introduction, what is it that the type of farming and the farming activities that you do? Could you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, well, I started in cow-calf ranch operations, and I did that for 12 to 15 years of my life. Ran large cattle ranchers in Eastern Oregon. And I have two sons, and they reached nearing high school age, and they said, we would like to have a regular high school experience. And I said, well, the finish line. So that makes a lot of producers that would like to change their farming practices a little bit hesitant towards doing that, just because you would have to go and tell them to destock, So if a producer was running 500 cows or 700 cows, you would have to tell them, well, instead of 700, maybe you need to run 400. And that's not anything that they're really interested in hearing, because most of these producers are multi-generational and they've been doing it this way for 40-50 years. So changing up their operations is not exactly what they want to do. So I've noticed, in my years of regenerative farming, I noticed that there was that you kind of need to farm your way, but not farming in a conventional sense, but just farm your way into improved pastures and better grasses that are going to allow these cattle to put a faster gain on, and because it's inefficient for a producer to own these cattle for 8 to 12 months. You're not going to make it. You got to get them out of there in 6 to 8 months at the longest. So with the implementation of understanding rotational graze, I take that back. With the understanding of intensive grazing and mob grazing and planting pastures and pasture management, we've devised a plan as to how to switch cow-calf ranch operations into organic regenerative feeder operations. So that's where we're at right now.
Okay. So is that, would you say that is your that is your product? Is that what you're selling?
Yeah, that's what we're in the process of selling right now. We're meeting with investors on the land purchase. So, we're very much at a startup for right now. There's not a lot of other producers that are really doing this type of practice in the United States right now. There's a few, but not so much with improved pastures. The majority of them are just throwing calves out on grass, and they have enough grass to be able to feed these calves out, which makes a very lean product with low in saturated fats. But it's hard to get people to try grass-fed beef on a lot of levels due to the fact that there's no marbling involved, and it has to be an enjoyable purchase for the consumer. Otherwise, they might purchase it once, but they're most likely are not going to purchase it again. And so there's a lot of that happens in the beef market. So I'm trying to get somewhere happy medium in between what a steak from a conventional feedlot looks like and in between what an actual grass-fed steak looks like, somewhere in the middle there that I could, make sure that the consumer is going to come back.
Absolutely. Yeah. What are the kind of questions that are important to someone who is wanting to purchase your consulting or purchase what you're essentially selling?
Well, at this, I like to keep my input costs and help the ranches that I work with keep their input costs to a minimum. I've worked with a lot of ranches that they've spent tens of thousands of dollars a year on herbicides and tens of thousands of dollars a year on conventional fertilizers. And I mean, it's just a recipe for very thin margins. I mean, the margins in the cattle industry are thin enough as they are to begin with. So anytime you can cut costs as in any industry, it's quite helpful. So not to mention, not just for cost, but for your environment as well. I mean, spraying these same herbicides, expecting different results year after year is a kind of an insane type of situation. I worked on a lot of ranches where we would spray the same areas year after year after year, and I would say, well, we haven't replanted anything. We haven't put any seed down. Why do we expect anything different than these same weeds to grow back next year? And a lot of I had some pretty deep talks with the chemical fertilizer salesmen, and God bless them, they came to the point where they told me that, well, we're here to sell you spray, and that's our job. And I said, well, God bless you for at least admitting that, but this is year 5 of us spraying the same field with these same weeds over and over and over again, and there's been no difference. The same weeds keep coming back. I said, does the spray make the seed dormant? And they said, well, no, of course the spray doesn't make the seed dormant. And I said, well, I can't help but notice that year in and year out, you wait to come out here and suggest that we spray these weeds until the seed's set. I said, so when I drive the tractor over it with the sprayer, I'm really knocking the seeds into the ground and really ramming them in there just to make sure they grow real well again next year. So as far as my consulting ways go, I mean, I don't see weeds as weeds anymore. As I've evolved on my journey, I see weeds as they have some sort of nutritional value, and some of them are quite high in nutritional value for cattle. So it's all a matter of timing and understanding that if you group your cattle tighter with electric fence and intensive grazing type areas, and it takes time to understand specific weeds, but if you can get cattle to the area at the specific time that they want to eat those weeds, they'll be there, and and they'll eat them, and you won't have to do all this spray. And I've done a little bit of trying with adding grass seed to our supplement mineral mix for the cattle, so the cattle actually eat the grass seed out of their supplements and minerals, and then through dung and feces, they're now not only are they fertilizing the area, but they're also seeding the area back on top of it. So as I get into these intensive grazing areas with where the weeds are at, I then make sure that even if I have to get out there just with a hand thrower and just, even on acreage, I mean, if you get a little seed spreader with a bag, you can cover a lot of acres just by yourself in a day. And then also, like I said, if you add the grass seed to the supplement mix, now every time the cattle have dung, you're also seeding the area as well. So back to your question, I would like to, I'd like to do things in a more environmentally friendly way, and, in a more regenerative for the land way, and ultimately, both sides of the coin. I like to knock the cost down as well.
Absolutely. But who do you say is your client base, Sandor?
That's a good question. I have a lot of people that are on the smaller side that have kind of retired from some sort of other industry, that have 50 head, that are just getting into the cattle industry, and they've heard about regenerative agriculture and they want to do it right. And then I also have folks that are on the larger side that just kind of noticed that there's not as much money at the end of the year, every year in and year out, and there seems to be less and less money, and they're starting to look at all these input costs. And so I have interest from both sides, but the majority of it is, folks that have come out of another industry that have bought, I don't want to use the term hobby ranch, but they've bought a ranch and are interested in doing it in a regenerative type of way.
Okay, excellent. All right.
By the time I go back through people, and I'll go back I'll normally make a pass through. Once people get into the program, after 3 or 4 years, they don't really need me anymore. I kind of work myself out of a job, unfortunately, but I look at that as a success story. If you don't need me after a couple of years, that means I've done something right. You have an understanding of it. So, as far as a business plan goes, it might not be it might not be the most effective way to go about things, financially speaking. But like I said, I feel good about things where, people just call me and, ask me questions, and, a lot of it I can do over the phone. And I like to go out to the ranches and, meet with the people. Everyone that I consult for, I get along with real well. So it's kind of nice to be able to spend time with the folks.
Okay, excellent.
It's more of a labor of love for me to, ultimately the cattle industry, people have been working so hard for so long, and they're so tired. And I like to also introduce them to a quality of life that maybe you could have a second cup of coffee in the morning, and maybe it's not always a fire type of situation. Because there's a lot of folks that are, their day in and day, their quality of life is being hindered by the pressure of these cattle operations, and it doesn't need to be that way. You should be able to enjoy your life while you do this. That's of utmost importance to me. I deal with a lot of folks that are starting to have grandkids now, and the grandkids are a big deal to them. And they say, well, I just don't have. I said, no, you do have time to deal with these grandkids. And what are we doing wrong here that is keeping you from spending time with your grandkids, or keeping you from bringing your grandkids out to the ranch and having them help out? So, so as far as that goes, everyone that I deal with on a consultant type level is a human being with a family, and that's, it's not a paycheck. It's, it's ultimately a greater good. Most of the folks that I'm dealing with are trying to leave the property to their grandchildren of some way. So it's like longevity is a major important thing. One of the most important deals that I, try and instill in people is, if you want your grandkids to do this, we probably, it's very imperative that we do it in an efficient manner right now, and in a sustainable manner right now. Major integral part of my business is trying to help people make their lives better and enjoy life, because we're not here for a very long time. The older we get, the shorter the days get. That's for certain for me.
Absolutely. All right. So could you take me through what your program is about, and what the content is about, Sandor?
Sure. Mm-hmm. Well, my program, like I said before, is about quality of life to start off, number one. I'll come in and do just a whole grazing plan for your ranch and a restructure management plan, and I'll charge an upfront fee for that. And then after that, it's, you can feel free to call me at any time, and we'll work it out. I don't know if you're familiar with the Savory Institute at all, but I did their holistic grazing and management program. And a lot of that is just about understanding the ground, timing as to when to graze, when not to graze, when to get in, when to get out, understanding the land, hoping for, looking for diversified multi-species in your grasses. I mean, most people, when they think ranches, they want to see one grass, and that's not the case. We want to see 25, 15, 20 different species of grass, because when one grass does one well this year, the other one may not. So, and it's also about, it's just about bettering the land. That's really is what it's all about: bettering your quality of life and bettering your land, and making something that's going to be sustainable to, with low input costs, just to make your life easier. Because this just doesn't need to be that difficult. It really doesn't.
Absolutely. Okay, great stuff. And Sando, take me through a typical day. What do you do on a daily basis?
Last week I did go, went up and spent some time at a ranch that I consult in Humboldt County, and we went out and checked out the soils and checked out the different grasses that are growing, because like I said, some of the grasses are growing this year that didn't necessarily grow last year. So we do a little species, look for different grass species, and just check out the body score of the cattle, and and then I work with a couple bull sellers, because you have to keep the people in your program in the proper bulls and the proper genetics. So I do with that a little bit.
How many years of experience would you say you've got in regenerative farming and/or?
In and out, probably. Well, look, I was doing organic farming when I was 20, so 26 years. 26 years, yeah. I've been involved in agriculture for 26 years, doing it right or wrong, okay. however many of those years it's been. So who's to say that I'm doing it right now? That's one of the better sayings from the Savory course is to make a plan, and then understand that your plan is going to probably be wrong, and then to assess your plan, and then to make another plan. So, as I go through life and go through agriculture, that saying really resonates with me. Make a plan, understand that my plan is probably going to be wrong, watch my plan, and then make a new plan. So that's the way you have to think. If you think you have this all figured out, if any producer or consultant comes in and says they have it all figured out, that's not the guy you want to deal with. You just got to look. You got to know what you're looking for, and you have to just be patient enough to understand the changes. We can't understand nature. It's anyone who says they can, more power to them. But differences in rainfalls and climate, and you just don't know what you're going to get from year to year.
Absolutely. What do people misunderstand about your industry the most?
Well, the grass-fed industry, what people don't understand the most on the consumer side is, why is the beef so expensive? And the reason why the beef is so expensive in the grass-fed industry is we're up against government subsidies. And the feedlot producers get all this subsidized grain, and they keep prices down, and they're working on such large amounts and so many head of cattle that they can sell their ground beef for $4.99 a pound. And you look at the grass-fed industry and you're like, well, that's $9 a pound of ground beef. And so we're kind of playing against the stacked deck in so many ways, which makes it difficult, because I understand, I've been on a budget for many years in my life, and I've had to buy that $3.99 a pound ground beef because I didn't have any choice. Did I want to buy the grass-fed stuff for $9? Of course I did. But so, that's the most difficult part for me in this job, is not being able to necessarily provide more healthy beef to lower income people, on a financial level right now. We're getting a little bit closer, but we're certainly by no means there. So that's frustrating for me, and that's what most people don't understand.
Absolutely. What would you say is a common myth about your job or field of expertise?
What is a common myth about my job or expertise? Well, that it's difficult, and that, it just has to be fun. That's a big part of what I'm trying to get across to people too, is This doesn't have to be difficult. This doesn't have to be like being in the dentist chair. You can enjoy yourself and have fun while you're doing this. I mean, and that's of major importance. And people think that it's a difficult industry to make money in, but there's realms of happiness. How much money do you need to be happy? I mean, if you're paying your bills and paying your mortgage and putting a little money in the bank and doing what you love to do and spending time with your family and building a decent life, I mean, that's all anyone can really ask for.
Absolutely. All right. Sandra, what would you say are the 5 biggest challenges you're facing in your role or business right now, and how are you tackling them?
Well, my first biggest challenge right now is doing a cap raise to get my own ranch. How am I tackling that? I'm making hundreds of connections and phone calls every day to VCs and private equity people, and I mean that's very difficult. Number 2, number 2 is having this dividing wall of not being able, basically what my whole business plan is about is not being able to bring more people into the industry. I mean, I see producers that would love to do the right thing, but they're just stuck in this swirling bowl of how they've been doing it for 30, 40, 50 years, and they're just unable financially and unable mentally to, get out of that situation that they've been in. Repeat the question again?
The biggest challenges you're facing at the moment.
Okay. Land prices, in the United States for startup type ag companies, it's very difficult for someone to get into ag that isn't a 3rd or 4th generation farmer, rancher, that's inheriting the land. I mean, it's just it's a big problem for the regenerative and organic industry, is for new people that want to do things this way to be able to find the capital to get into it. I mean, it's almost impossible. It's a full-time job, and it's very discouraging, for new producers to try and get into this. Let's see. And another thing is I see a lot of investment has the word regenerative and sustainable around it, but is it really? I mean, there seems to be a lot of money in the industry, but is it, there's a lot of people that are expecting these exorbitantly large returns, and they're just not going to be there in agriculture. I mean, it's a labor of love, and if you don't love it, then it's might not be the correct industry for you.
Okay. All right. Okay. Any other 2 challenges that you're facing in your business or role at the moment? Not really too much. I mean, like I said, the outlook is pretty sunny as far as where we're at right now. I have to say. I mean, this industry is only getting bigger. Whole Foods are only opening up more and more. People are concerned about the type of foods that they want to put in their bodies. There's a lot of awareness towards regenerative ag. There's a lot of awareness towards eating well. I mean, if you would have came with this idea, or we would have had this conversation 20 years ago, I would have said, oh boy, this is going to be tough. But, I've traveled in the Midwest, and I've traveled all over the United States, and the real food movement is real in the United States. I mean, younger people are really understanding what's going in their bodies and understanding that, it has an outcome on their daily life if they eat well. So I noticed that, I'm surprised and happy to notice that that's happening all over the United States. Excellent. Okay. What about the industry itself? What challenges, what are the biggest challenges that your industry, and is your industry feedlot producers or grass-fed? Grass-fed producers, yeah. Okay. So what is the biggest challenges facing
Well, like I said earlier, the fact that we're up against subsidized, any farmer that has to go up against government subsidized food the deck is stacked against you right off the bat. Land prices are a big problem for people trying to expand. I've done some in-depth searching for land across the United States and to try and get not only in cattle, but in agriculture as well. I mean, the land prices are so out of whack that, to try and find a piece of land that you're going to be able to pay a mortgage on and have a decent enough living off of with agriculture or with beef is it's real tough.
Okay. All right. What's the solution then for that?
Well, I mean, I don't know what the solution is as far as land prices coming back down to reality. I mean, because as long as people keep buying them as long as people keep paying the price for the exorbitant land prices, people, why would anybody drop their land price? There definitely should be, there needs to be more open flow of investment for this. I mean, there's certainly a lot of folks that I'm dealing with right now as well that, maybe you want to put your money into a 10 or 15 year land deal and, gain some interest and then work on land appreciation for 10 or 15 years and let a farmer get some, 10 or 15 years of income underneath them and then have a discussion about the property later. I mean, if that doesn't happen and more ability for farmers, I mean, the farmers are getting old in the United States and with a lot of industries. I mean, I worked pretty in depth with some cut flower guys and they lost their industry. Their industry went to Mexico, and then Mexico lost that industry to Colombia, and then Colombia lost the same industry to Ethiopia because in Mexico they paid $15 a week, and then in Ethiopia in Mexico they paid $15 a day, and in Ethiopia they paid $15 a week. So, that's something you have to really watch out about. Right now our borders aren't too open to foreign beef, but if it gets too difficult for producers to be able to make it here, there's not going to be too much, what is the other option?
Absolutely. In your opinion, Sandor, what are the 5 most important traits or strengths or skills someone would need to work in your industry or be successful at your job?
Humor. Humor comes to line right away. Compassion, understanding, tenacity, and boy, what would the last one be? Tenacity, and then and regard for the people that you're dealing with. So regard.
Sandor, what's one thing about your job or field or expertise that no one agrees with you about?
Well, I don't know if no one agrees with me about it, but I'm suggesting that with improved pastures, we're going to plant perennial grains, and instead of harvesting, I'll do a one plant with a no-till drill, and so instead of harvesting and taking it to a mill and then sending it to a feedlot, my suggestion is why not just grow those grains in the field, let them stand and let the cattle eat them right there on the spot. So it's a little bit different than what most people are used to. Most people are used to doing, like I just said, with all the extra farming, all the extra shipping the cattle to the feedlot, and there's not a lot of folks that are doing it that way. So yeah, I mean, I'm very excited. I'm very excited to try, to go into that way. I know a couple people in Texas that are planting perennial grasses that are, real good for the gain of the cattle, and so I mean, I'm really looking forward to that.
Excellent. Okay. And what tools are indispensable for your job?
Humor. Humor. I mean, humor and patience, and patience is a must. I mean, even when I get people that enter into the program, it's still, I want to make it your idea. I don't want to come in there. We have to work together. So, I mean, obviously I have tools that I can explain to you my thought processes and why I think this would work. But ultimately I'm not the type of consultant that comes in and says, you have to do it this way. I'll offer my suggestions to you. If you're in agreement with them, let's move forward. So, patience is a big deal. It just really is. And, I'm wrong. I'm wrong a lot of the time too. So I don't necessarily what I said was going to happen isn't going to happen the next year. So, it's a patient, loving, working relationship with all my clients.
Absolutely. All right. And how soon do your clients see results when working with them?
Well, if they are in a great place and I can talk them into destocking and getting rid of their cattle or leasing out another piece of ground or being able to get their cattle off of their property for a growing season, they'll see wonderful results within the first 8 months. If they're not able to do that, then it takes a little bit longer. Then it's a couple of years, and depending on how much money they want to put in, but I mean, definitely within 2 years we're seeing results for certain.
Okay, within 2 years. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What's one lesson your job has taught you that you think everyone should learn at some point in their life?
Humility, but just, I'm there at my job to help. And like I said, I'll make a plan, I'll watch my plan, I'll expect my plan to be wrong, and I'll make another plan. So, I wish more people dealt like that in a business aspect as well, because I can't tell you the amount of businesses I've been through that aren't ag or cattle related that, it's normally the fact, it really is. And that's the problem, is if you can't reassess your plan and you're stuck on the first plan that you've come out with, I've seen a lot of good ideas go into the ground because the folks just get stuck on that first plan as opposed to reassessing and, okay, well, we didn't see this coming and we didn't see this coming, so, let's reassess and make a new plan.
Right. And what's the best work or business compliment you've ever received?
We're happy. Thank you. We're happy. Things are going really well. We're enjoying the time with our family. Our workload has gone down. Everything's doing really well.
And it's a relationship where, as you said, you actually work yourself out of a job. Yeah. Well,
which is I do, and which is why I'd like my own piece of property, because I'd like, like I said, in 2 years, I'm ready for expansion. I'm ready for, to take a real big swing at things here. I would like to be one of the bigger producers here in the next 10 years. I can see what needs to happen. I can see the missing link in the equation, and I'm more than excited to jump in and start regenerating properties and start, with my game plan, I can then take other producers that are used to, and I can bring them into organic and regenerative and give them a place to go with their calves. So, as I expand, I also am expanding the industry as well.
When it comes to you talking or getting clients, getting grass-fed producer clients, take me through the sales process. What has to happen?
I wouldn't really call it a sales process. It's normally they come to me and they say, we're not doing very well. What would you suggest? So I don't actively go out looking for clients. It's normally, like I said, word of mouth. Somebody's not doing very well. That's how 99% of the folks that I deal with go.
Okay. All right. And did you always want to be how would you prefer to be known as?
I guess I would like to be known as a organic feed, an organic, regenerative organic ranch consultant and landowner. And if I always wanted to be that, no, but it happened fairly quickly. Once I was about 22, I figured it out. So for all of my adult life, I have, yes.
Right. Okay. Great.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time.
Likewise. Okay then.
Okay.
Thank you so much for watching. If you found this information useful, please click the like button, and please subscribe to receive new information from the food and agribusiness industry. Thank you. Goodbye.